So today we have a map and it has no geos, a little carbon and a very little silicon.
Yeah, this could be a bit of an interesting one. I mean, only 6 silicon, 4 of it's in a cluster.
And very little
In the
iron as well.
southeast, yeah.
If two players found, everybody else is out of iron.
I know, and like carbon's not all that great either. You've got like one scavenger location, and I'd be really tempted to found just in that crater, like properly, you know?
Yes.
I think Soren has the right idea here. He's just grabbing up a decent scientific location immediately.
Yeah, with a fair bit of depth.
Yeah. But as long as he can just hold on, which might be a little awkward with the silicon and geotherm situation, like power.
That's pretty hard without geothermals.
It absolutely is.
Especially because the silicon situation is also terrible.
Yeah. But 31,000 debt for Soren and 15,000 for Bradbury. That did get them the iron on the map, effectively. Leaving Blackmagic and Ultrapope to fight about the carbon situation. And that's not going to go well for Blackmagic by the looks of it.
And the scavengers, they're screwing each other for the carbon.
Absolutely. So Blackmagic, it looked like he was attempting to go for the medium that Ultrapope ended up with, and so instead he's just left with 2 lows at the moment and only 3 carbon per second. That is definitely lower than you want to be. Like, you need a minimum of 3.75 and preferably somewhere in the 4 to 6 range for carbon, I feel like. If you're going to drop Scavenger.
Yeah, like 2 quarries, that's equivalent to like 2.5 steel mills.
Mm-hmm. It's just not quite enough, to be honest. It's not exactly what you're looking for.
Well, you would be slow rolling, and as I have demonstrated, slow rolling is a valid strategy.
Oh, certainly. It definitely can be useful, and Blackmagic does have the advantage of he's got a decent aluminum mine not too far away from his base, and I think he's going to be relying on that to hold on right now. You can see Soren's aluminum. That is going to be costing him so much fuel across the course of the game. Like, he's spending 1.2 fuel a second pretty much right now. 1 fuel a second effectively to transport that aluminum. That is
right.
That is so much. That is so much money that he's just like, and I'm really concerned about that because he started with the ridiculous debt problem already. He's going to have to do something like get to level 3 quickly and move into reactors, it feels like, in order to hold on this game.
Yeah.
We'll have to see how he can compensate for it, though. Just can't say for sure until things have actually played out.
I'm a little bemused that nobody has a lot of food yet.
Yeah, Ultrapope's just got that 1 farm. I do like he took a lot of carbon immediately and made them all quarries, which was definitely questionable in the wake of Blackmagic's triple quarry as well. But he is transitioning into a little more food. Hopefully for him, that'll give him a nice boost and a nice influx of cash he can actually utilize for something like Mutinies or just upgrading.
And they're both very vulnerable to the EMP.
Absolutely, they are. It's a nice way to knock out both of them, quite frankly. If carbon ever gets a bit high, you just EMP that little crater, and Ultrapope is in for a world of hurt, and Blackmagic's not going to like it either.
Well, there is 1 goon squad on the steel of Veivi.
Probably a good idea, just wants to make sure that he can keep that income rolling in. Steel always just so important.
It's also a good investment for the Offworld.
Absolutely.
Which is decent.
Transitioning into a little food now is Veivi, which is probably a good idea. Only 2 farms having been beaten by Ultrapope too, so it's just that should be just fine. Slowdown Strike would be tempting to use against Soren, who's off to that kind of tearing start. Maybe not yet, but just having it in your pocket can be so useful for later, and we do see that Soren is into the triple electrolysis reactor we would expect out of him. Now, of course, this brings up its own concern of Soren needs power. Like,
yeah,
it just has to happen at some point.
Yeah, you have to wonder what is going to happen with power.
No.
Nobody has any power yet. Blackmagic is beginning to. And he is in a good position with his tiles to put down more power.
Absolutely. Those wind turbines could actually be, like, just the opportunity to build wind turbines, maybe even with superconductor, could be huge this game for Blackmagic. He's definitely in the best spot in that regard.
There is no patent lab yet. But there are holograms, so it is possible to sneak up into the patent market.
Absolutely. We do see Ultrapope has also chosen to get some wind power down, although even though it's a good spot for the time being, he is kind of stuck with those being wind power tiles for the duration of this game. Not much more that you can do with them. A bit unfortunate, I think, as he could have taken maybe slightly weaker wind, but taken ice tiles along with them, just in case things get a little bit crazy this game. Maybe just not quite thinking as far ahead as one would hope in that situation.
Well, and the power wars are kicking off.
Absolutely. That was a mutiny by Blackmagic onto that wind turbine. Trying to do what he can to pay down his debt and see if he can make some kind of cash from the power, although nobody is in a very good position to do that. Ultrapope and Blackmagic both founding late enough that they didn't take on any debt initially, but waiting long enough to put up power that their debt's already gotten just a bit out of control, and they're not paying it off very quickly at all. Has everybody mutinied that tile except for Ultrapope now? That's what it looks like.
Seems like.
Oh no, everybody has mutinied that tile, including Ultrapope.
Well, Veivi is ahead in the wealth department. He is ready to upgrade if he wants to also.
Absolutely.
Expansive colony
There goes his wealth, and he upgrades.
Soren building a patent lab at this moment, no big surprise as a scientific player on HQ level 4. I can see him maybe looking for teleportation, although I don't know if it would be a great concern, considering he only has, I believe, 3 tiles separated from his base right now. Oh man.
I think there is a small mistake made by Soren, because if you hologram as an advanced building like that on its own and it turns into a hacker array, it just invites spies.
Absolutely. Like, it just tells people, hey, like, just hologramming an advanced building on its own seems a bit awkward because it's always going to turn into a different advanced building. It's like they don't know exactly what you're doing. Maybe they'll make a poor assumption, but it always says, hey, I'm doing something. Make sure you're paying attention.
Yeah, I prefer to put it down next to steel mills, where it just looks like a steel mill.
Absolutely. It's entirely reasonable to have 4 steel mills down to scientific. So many people do that. Why not? Why not just aim that direction? Worth noting that Veivi was the one to pick up thinking machines for 18,000 debt. And this game, that could be a pretty big deal for an expansive player to just get to have thinking machines in a game where Dynamite and Mutinies both exist. That could make a big difference long term.
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
Well, Soren is getting ahead, as scientifics often do on maps where they get to be adjacent to iron and water.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's pretty much the dream for a scientist, is getting to actually found in that location, especially on such an awkward map when it comes to iron, as it can make that steel market difficult.
You have all of the upsides and none of the downsides.
And this will tell you Soren's opinion on his debt right now, rushing for cold fusion. He's about to pick it up. Just wants to... He's just trying to stave off that debt, because he is dangerously close to D range at this point. Just a hair more and he'll be sitting in it, but it looks like he is successfully paying off debt at the moment.
Like, what time of the day is the interest?
The interest hits at... When is it? Is it dawn these days that interest hits at? It kept changing.
It is.
I just, So he might be okay for the moment, since he's successfully paying off debt, and we'll just have to see if he can manage to hold that line, stay out of that D range.
I'm a little surprised. Nobody is using EMPs yet.
Yeah, everybody... I don't know if our scavengers are just struggling to make money. That is what it feels like at this point. I love during the game to be able to go to those charts and graphs and see that Veivi and Soren are by far making the most money. Soren has sold $190,000 worth of resources Veivi has sold 140. Ultrapope has only sold 68, and Blackmagic only 42. So, ignoring the business net revenue, which kind of counts in debt and can make things confusing,
Yeah,
it just kind of tells you who is successfully pulling in that cash right now, more than anything else.
And everybody, almost everybody, is in a lot of debt, except for Blackmagic.
Yeah, Blackmagic, with those early wind turbines and not being the one who was, like, he started the mutiny train, which I loved because it kind of focused everybody away from his wind turbines and onto Ultrapope's. Like, okay, we know that tile is undefended, so everybody just kept attacking it, and so Blackmagic didn't have to worry about his own tiles being attacked. It was very nice. Soren, you just can't help yourself, can you?
Well, I just prefer to mutiny goon something, but every time I do, nobody goes for it.
Yeah, well, you just have to wait for other people to get on your level. That's all it is. Finally, we do see a Pleasure Dome coming out. Soren, you have... Okay, he's taken 2 Pleasure Dome locations.
And Veivi is managing to pick up on a lot of patents as well. He got Superconductor, and now, what is it? Yeah, he's working on financial instruments.
Probably not a bad idea with Soren being in the position that he's in.
And Soren isn't making... Oh, he started on carbon scrubbing, never mind.
Good. Carbon scrubbing
Yes.
definitely feels like a reasonable option this game.
Yeah,
you have to
it's
expect
awesome.
it's going to spike.
Yes, and you can't replace your steel mills when they stop being useful.
Mm-hmm. I love to see nanotech along with that, just to make sure that even if you get out of steel, you'll always be able to make those transitions. But we'll have to see if what he decides on after carbon scrubbing, if anything.
So Ultrapope is in a very vulnerable position right now. Without a lot of cash, he can be bought out by other players.
Yeah, and he has to be concerned about Veivi, who is sitting on an absolutely ridiculous pile of money right now.
Yeah, if everybody just piles onto Ultrapope, he is done for.
With this new expansion, we have increased our
I mean,
potential
that's always a
production
dangerous
and
position you put yourself in by
shareholders
upgrading
will love it.
so late, realistically. It's just so easy to take you out instantly at that point. And quite valuable, too. Even without the Offworld, so level 5 HQ is nothing to sneeze at.
They might just be waiting for him to start putting down Offworlds or something.
And they could always just be very focused on taking care of themselves at the moment. Veivi, we can see he spent most of his cash, about half of it realistically, on upgrading right now. Soren, he's in a position where he has a lot of cash. It looks like he is trying to push into position for an Offworld. I don't know why else he would be holding on to quite that much money at this stage of the game.
Pirates. I hate those filthy bandits.
It is also worth noting that food and oxygen are both quite decent off-world materials, as is chemicals this game. So, oh, here we go, finally.
Discover new resources.
And then that auction comes up to just slow everything down.
Building Soren. Wow, like the first EMP goes down on Soren.
Yeah, who is still scientific. I mean, and it didn't even hit one of his tiles. It was positioned off to the side to make sure it wouldn't get intercepted. So, I mean, that's kind of nice. It'll take a few thousand away from Soren.
You
but
could have used the spy.
yeah, absolutely. Like, spies for only 4,500 right now. That means only like 2 have been bought, and wow, Soren, just with the elimination of Ultrapope so quickly.
Well, it'll make him a target for the other 2.
It will make Soren a target, and that is something he has to be concerned about.
Especially with his debt.
Mm-hmm. I mean, once again, he has been riding that line this entire time of D-Debt, and he is firmly in it at this point. Not deep into it, but we still have an interest rate coming momentarily, and Soren's definitely going to have to worry about that. Wow, you can even see, I don't agree with this. He's got, maybe it's the right call, this solar panel down in this potential Pleasure Dome location. That's interesting. I wonder if that would actually prove worthwhile.
It's a little bit marginal, but yeah, it's...
I'm also concerned, these glass furnaces out on top of this silicon, maybe that's okay, but
Your stock is being
Soren, even during the day for a while, was in fact losing money and power. I think some more solar panels have come online somewhere for him, but... Yee. Now that said, Veivi is solidly in D-debt too.
Yeah. It seems to be a pattern in the tournament.
Absolutely. Well, in this map in particular, I don't know if these players identified as easily that the lack of silicon and geotherms would make power such a difficult concept, you know?
Yeah, and PB is commenting, like, if you went Power Robo on the silicon, you might have been very, very rich right now.
It's true, that could have been an interesting play. Although definitely a bold play is how I would have defined that, but maybe if you were stuck and like somebody else had already found its scavenger, the 2 iron plots had been taken, maybe it would have been the correct call. Just to be like, well,
yeah,
no one's
there would have
great
been
this game.
2 players in steel, which would discourage just spiking the price.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So...
Nobody can quite decide the best way to proceed this game, but it is worth noting that Soren is the only player left without an Offworld market in the game at this point. He's going to be relying on Ultrapope to make that cash for him, effectively.
12,000.
Alright, claim auction.
16,000.
Soren, it does look like, has dumped a large amount of money into paying off his debt at this point.
Yeah.
Just kind of once stock had dispersed, it makes sense to go ahead. I'm going to buoy up that price, make sure that I'm okay, and then he dumps himself right back down into D-rating because he can't resist the auction. That's pretty classic Soren right there.
Right, so... I can't be sure who's going to win yet.
It does seem like a difficult call. Soren has a very clear stock advantage.
Yes, and the price of Veivi is very low, so
And that
I
is the
think
big
Soren is
concern.
going to take it by buying him soon-ish. But yeah, it's very possible.
Yeah, I mean, the real advantage that Veivi has over Soren right now is just solely this one off-world market, which isn't like, and he's got another one going up, but neither of them are going to be benefiting from thinking machines if he was to be attacked because of their positioning. Which is certainly a little awkward. He's relying more on those holograms to keep himself protected.
Yeah. Well, I'm a little disappointed nobody is hologramming their pleasure domes.
Oh man, it would have been nice if that solar panel should have been hologrammed to look like a pleasure dome. That's what should have happened, obviously.
Yes.
Trick them all. They're not going to know. Alright, silicon shortage. Do we have a hack array up? No, we don't have hack arrays up. No, Blackmagic has a hack array. Okay. And he is the one working on those silicon shortages right now.
Well, Veivi is getting ahead in the cash race. But he's also paying off a lot of debt.
Yeah, just being forced to dump so much of that cash into debt is not a position he's going to be comfortable with. But, I mean, that said, he has 2 off-world markets online. And at this point, that's 47,000 profit each launch, like every minute, basically, from each of them. That is a lot of money. Although I don't know how Soren has been doing with his majority control of Ultrapope this game. He's gotten about 60,000 from it. And if we compare that to Veivi, he's sold like 210,000 off-world. Blackmagic has sold 204,000 off-world.
But you also have to think of the price of
the
the
stock
life
price.
support that they're sending, because it's just like half, or like 1/2 of the profit of the cents, because of the price of everything.
No, certainly.
12,000.
And that's also one of the problems with making off-worlds. If you do not produce enough for yourself, you give profits to the other players, especially the scientifics and the expensive and everybody who has been engineering their life support.
Absolutely, which I don't think... Soren has 1 engineering lab this game, and it has been doing some work, but interestingly enough, it's entirely been in water so far. and then electronics. And he's not making many electronics. He does have 3 factories up at this point, which is good. But upgrading the water as a scientific player just feels a bit awkward to me. He does have 2 high pumps effectively with slant drilling going on, so it's not the end of the world, but it does seem to kind of cut away one of your advantages. I don't know if you would agree that like having a high water price as scientific can be beneficial because it leaves markets open for you that aren't available to other people.
Well,
that's how I
you
see
got a ton of profit from it. He's like 600 or 500 a second from it.
Yeah, which is certainly useful. But on the other hand, what would his reactors look like if he had just upgraded those instead? You know, it's just like I mean, he upgraded those,
about
but
the same right now.
yeah. And so it's just
What I'm not seeing from, I think, any of the players is just targeting the water pumps.
we have seen some EMPs on those, but to be fair, Soren's primary water pump is goon squatted, and so
Yeah, but everybody else is. I don't think they're... No, not protected.
yeah. Does Blackmagic even have? Yeah, he does have a couple water pumps. Not great ones, but they are functional. And well, there we go. Soren taking down Blackmagic. He's still sitting on so much cash, but so is Veivi. But Veivi's target is just so far away at this point. Realistically, Soren is so much closer to his goal, and with 2 subsidiaries, one of which has 2 Offworld markets online, I will be surprised if Veivi can take this in the end.
Me too. I think Soren has got this locked up.
It's also worth noting that Soren is currently sitting on Energy Vault, Perpetual Motion, Virtual Reality, Nanotech Cold Fusion, Carbon Scrubbing, Slant Drilling, and Teleportation.
I hate those filthy
So,
bandits.
most of them.
I'll say that 3 times fast.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. But, and Veivi does have the other 4, Water Engine, Financial Instruments, and Superconductor, so...
Well, there goes another claim, and Veivi can afford to get it this time.
Yeah, he can. He has at this point paid off all of his debt. He apparently is so scared to take on any more, though. Or maybe he just thinks that a claim really isn't worth that much this late in the game. Which is understandable. Water is down to a nice and cheap $9 at this point. Which is definitely going to be nice for Veivi in a lot of ways. Even with his water pumps already established, just being able to freely use those electrolysis reactors and hydroponic farms is going to be important. But let's take a look at things. Soren, he's ahead in cash, he's ahead in stock price. And he has more sources of income, realistically. The only edge Veivi possibly could have is having that second Offworld online. And somehow I doubt that's going to be enough to cover up all of Soren's advantages put together.
No, the stock difference is much too...
It's just too great, exactly. Soren's only looking for 419. Veivi has to look for 644. I think this one is all but done, and there's not much Veivi can do to keep Soren from just taking game number 1 as we move on toward the rest of this match.
Well, he's up to 70%, 72, 3. There is no way.
Absolutely. We'll have to see if Soren's keeping a close eye on his cash so that he knows when to cancel those off-world launches in order to appropriately push to the end of the game. Because something you'll notice, players will hang out above 100% for a long time before making a buy in the middle of the game. And that can be confusing from an observer perspective, but these days, from what I can tell, it just means that they have resources locked up in the launch because those seem to be detected now.
Yes.
And so they can't just cancel and make the buy because that's killing their off-world. So it's not too surprising to see that in the middle of the game, but at the end of the game, it's obviously the correct decision for Soren to cancel out and just end it now.
Yes. You have to remember and know it.
There we go. He did go ahead and get onto it. So Soren does take game number 1. Unsurprisingly. Based on the end of that game, but realistically, anybody could take it from here still. That was a very awkward map, and Soren being the bold one certainly seemed to get the best position, so we'll have to see how the rest of these play out
And he didn't die to depth this time.
He didn't. He managed to just barely hold on consistently and stay in it. Just.
A lot of the time he is in a lot of depth, and I can just easily buy him.
Mm-hmm. And maybe it's just that the other players weren't being aggressive enough. Maybe they just weren't able to make enough money because of the awkward founding locations. But it seems pretty clear that founding early and taking on all that debt was the right decision this game, at least.
Yes, absolutely. Terrible map for everything.
Yeah, literally terrible map for everything, which means it's almost always to be best to be the scientist. And not a lot of... Like, just to point out how difficult a time Ultrapope was having in particular. I know he got eliminated early, but as a scavenger, only 4 black market purchases is definitely on the low side. And not what you're going to be looking for. Especially because Soren, despite how much time he spent in D debt, did have the most black market purchases with 13. So everybody else maybe just falling behind? I mean, black market wasn't all that strong this game, if we're honest. Like,
you have to look at the interest charges that Soren paid.
oh man.
It's like 280k. Veivi 155k. That is more than the entertainment income.
Yeah, that's absolutely ridiculous. Almost 300,000 in interest for Soren. That's just crazy. It's more money than he made from all of his subsidiaries put together. That's just crazy.
Do you know what the miscellaneous revenue is?
Miscellaneous revenue.
Like Veivi has
Oh.
like 82k and something.
I actually don't know. Usually that line is just 0, so it's not a real concern. I'm curious.
I think it's financial instruments, I think.
Perhaps it is financial instruments. That would make sense. I was going to look at patents and see what does Veivi have. Financial instruments would make the most sense for that. So that seems like actually it was a pretty good patent, that game, I have to say.
Yes, absolutely.
$82,000, that's a significant amount of money right there.
Yeah, I think this also shows just the power of scientific when everybody tries to go off-world without enough support. You just feed your scientific opponent a lot of profit.
Absolutely. I think it also shows that getting aggressive against an open opponent can certainly be the right call. If that had been a full buyout, I imagine Soren would have lost the game. But because the majority buyout mechanic exists and Soren was able to just kind of like swoop in and grab that up very quickly at very minimal cost, it provided such a great boost to his stock price.
And
it
it
made it very
happened so
difficult to attack
fast.
him.
I didn't notice that he bought the other guy until it happened.
Yeah. Absolutely. It was so quick. And it was clearly the right decision this game. It worked out very well for him. Nobody else seemed to really be able to recover after that point and get to a position where they could truly be threatening. So that was really nice to see. Is there anything more you want to look at from here, or are you good to go ahead and move on to game number 2?
I'm looking at, wow, Soren made 360k on water.
That is no small amount of cash.
And a lot of life support and steel. A lot of steel and electronics as well. Okay, I'm done.
Yeah. But it is worth noting that water was his single most valuable resource. That said, he did upgrade it a lot.
Yeah, a lot.
But it worked out very well for him. Clearly that the single... I'm trying to remember the name of the building. The single technology building. Why can't I remember its name right now? Paying off very well for him. Soren being the only one to
The
gain it.
engineering bay or
Yeah,
lab.
the engineering lab. That's what it is.
I think somebody said that they would always call it an engineering bay.
Yeah, I think that was me at some point, just because that word is so ingrained into my head from too much StarCraft. All right. I'm going to get on out of here.
Right.
Go ahead.